Hey, welcome everybody to this week's episode of Cafecito. Hope you got your cafecito, taking a couple minutes to relax. Or if you're watching this later, because we get that a lot. Oh, I caught it later on in the day. So welcome. Today's conversation I can't wait to have. This is we've been planning and haven't gotten to it, and we finally got to it. So I'm so excited for today's guest, Natalie Marino. If you do not know her, she's the Latina Techie. And welcome, Natalie.
How
Yay.
are you? Thank you so much for having me. I know this has been a long time coming and finally we're here.
Yes. I'm so excited. This is going to be a great topic because, especially with AI, todo, and everything that's kind of how tech has evolved, over the past, I don't know, handful of years, not even, right? It's so much more, so it's sped up. But today we're talking about some techie tips and business solutions because I know some of you are entrepreneurs, business owners, or you're working within organizations and maybe are responsible for kind of creating that infrastructure for your company. So we're going to be talking about all things techie, all things solutions. What do we need as business owners? And but first, let's start with your background. Natalie, who does not know you yet, give us a little bit of background on you, where you're from, how you got into tech in the tech space.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sandra. So I am Natalie Marino. I am from Puerto Rico, born in California. I've been living in Florida for the last, 30 odd years of my life. And I found myself right out of college working for an HR outsourcing organization called a professional employer organization, or what we consider in the industry a PEO. And that is really where I got my start in not only the corporate world, but also in my techie journey, if you will. I started in the benefits department, just kind of managing benefit administration processes and things like that, things like open enrollment, and then moving into more of like a business analyst type of role. And then from there, think of all the systems that you use from an HR perspective, from hire to retire, everything from applicant tracking, payroll, actual payroll software, things of that nature. All the way to benefit enrollment tools. I've worked on them either from a configuration capacity or actually managing teams that have developed solutions for our industry. So I always say I kind of landed in tech by accident because it was really by way of HR.
Yeah. But that sounds awesome. That's a great way, right? I think,
Right.
and I think many spaces today are in some form of you have to have the tech skills, especially when it comes to data management and people management tools. I think that's probably the most common. I don't know. Is it like a data where you're managing people?
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. I think from a techie perspective, and I love that you touched on that point. We're all techies, right? Like no matter where you sit in the world, you tap on your phone with all of these applications, you're using technology at some capacity in your day-to-day life, whether it is, whatever it is you're doing in your day-to-day work life, or even at home with the myriad of applications that we have access to, or even on the computer, things like that. So I think that no matter what in this day and age, even, down to students in schools, we all have to utilize technology at some point in time.
Yep. I love it. I think it's cool. I think it's awesome. Just learning how to manage those systems. So give us some. Let's start with some of your basic tips. Let's start there. So before we get anything.
Oh, I love back to basics.
Mhm.
From an entrepreneur, and I'll kind of cover from an entrepreneurial perspective, because I think corporate can be so vast, and a lot of our resources, rightfully so. And what's so great about corporate is that you have the resources are endless, right? So you're able to use the Microsoft Teams of the world, the Salesforces of the world. You're really kind of able to utilize licenses to applications that you wouldn't necessarily normally do in an open market when you're on your own. So from an entrepreneurial perspective, I try to think of things that are easy, basic, and free, right? Things that I can utilize that are going to make whatever my personal life or my entrepreneurial life very easy in way kind of wave of efficiencies, if you will. So for example, if I'm making sure that I have to be in one place at one point, making sure your calendars are synced, like that's kind of how basic we get, right? Like making sure your email, your mail is syncing, your calendar's up and ready to go. You have some sort of booking mechanism if you're in the servicing type of space, right? Like how are people able to contact you, whether it's virtually, whether it's somebody's actually booking time with you, things like of that nature. And those could be anywhere from Google has free. Now, if you have Google accounts, there's a free booking mechanism down to, if you want paid versions, Calendly, right? There's those. Even down to very kind of simple CRM solutions. Google has a great business suite that you're really kind of able to utilize and kind of tweak to your liking, right? There's Airtable as well. And then you have the Trellos, the Asanas, the Notion. Notion has been my newest baby, if you will, where you're actually able to utilize AI to help you project. I'm using it to help me project manage a huge project that has a lot of different moving pieces, and people that are individual contributors as well. And I'm able to utilize AI to help me create project plans, roadmaps, timelines, with me just like putting in simple commands in the actual software. So there's a lot of tools out there and a lot of resources. Like I said, there's like freemium versions. So that's kind of where I'll always kind of steer my entrepreneurs to.
Yeah. I love it. And I am an Airtable fanatic. Like we use Airtable. I live and breathe. It's my go-to. It's where everything is organized. I don't know. I know there's other platforms like Airtable, but Airtable is diamond to me. Is
right? Like it's easy. We don't have to think about it. And I'm always going to err on the side of like, what is simple, right? Like what is simple for me to track? Cause that's, typically why we're using Airtable, or we're using it to track things. Yeah. And also like, how am I able to extract that data too? Because of my corporate life, I always try to make sure that I interact with software that I'm like, I'll always ask like, how can I get this out later? Like, can I get this out of here? How can I extract this? How can I export this? So I'll always ask kind of those types of questions as well.
That's such a great question, because sometimes I talk to people and they're using something. I'm like, but you got to get that stuff out of there and we'll put it over here. And they're like, what do you mean? I can't get it out of there. I'm like, what do you mean you can't get it out of there? Like, so
one at a time.
Yeah. I'm like, that's not possible. That's not. So that is.
I have to be able to export this. Like even if it's ugly, I don't care if it's ugly. It doesn't have to be pretty. I don't need a pretty PDF. A nice Excel will do just fine. I love Excel.
Yeah.
So I totally agree.
Yeah. That's such a great question. How can I get the information that I'm putting in here out? Because you got to be able to create reports and understand what that data is actually telling you. So the analysis part of it is, okay, well, how do I look at this from that perspective? Excel. I tell people Airtable is Excel on steroids. Like they're like, oh, I don't want to use a new tool. I'm like, do you love Excel? They're like, not Excel, Google Sheets.
Google Sheets,
same difference to me. I mix them up, but one is a little bit more optimized and online and accessible from any device. So that's also key to using these tools. But I always tell them it's Google Sheets on steroids. It is a spreadsheet that you can and then present it so many different ways.
You can present it, and then you're able to if you want to get real fancy, you can put forms to it and then have the forms import back into your Airtable. There's just so many things that you're able to do. And I think that sometimes people from a corporate, and this happened to me, right? From coming from extracting your corporate self and putting yourself in an entrepreneurial seat. Sometimes we think like it's not feasible, right? Because we need all those big fancy tools. Yeah. When in reality, there's things as powerful as Airtable that are running multi-million-dollar businesses. Yeah. From an entrepreneurial lens. And I know I work with so many founders who the crux of their business is Airtable. And that's how they're tracking sales and how they're tracking their clients. And it's very interesting how basic tools can be for you to be able to, just be in business and make money.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned Salesforce, which I love Salesforce, but also, yeah, it's not feasible when you're a one person business or a two-person business. Even the Salesforce is just it's expensive, and you still need to do the things that are in Salesforce, which is manage your pipeline and manage your leads. But Airtable is a tool that there is a freemium version, and then when you're ready to upgrade, you can upgrade and do all those great things, which is still affordable, way affordable than not to knock Salesforce because I really love them, but
I love Salesforce. I mean, if I
yeah.
could get a license, a free
Yeah, yeah.
someone else, I would love.
Let's pitch that to them. Hopefully they hear this. It's like Salesforce. We need something for entrepreneurs that we can do.
That would be so great. Although, you know what, I have to play the devil's advocate just because I love different tools and like learning.
Yeah, I love it. Notion, yeah.
Notion has become. I had a close friend in the networking space had mentioned it to me. She was working on a project. She's like, "Oh, have you used this?" I'm like, "Actually, no, but I've heard about it."
Yeah.
And I've been able, like I said, like project plans, communications. It gives you just all these templates for you to just, use what you want and, trash what you don't need, things like that. It's pretty. You're able to make it where you're able to make it as robust as you need it to track things from a CRM perspective as well. Yeah. And I believe it also integrates with Airtable. I have to check on that, but I'm very certain it does. I have to check.
Yeah.
But I think there's an open integration there.
Yeah, that's and that's the other thing is integrations. Can the tool integrate with other systems that you have? That's so important. So there's Notion and there's Motion, right? I know there's two because someone recently introduced me, and I don't know if it was Notion or Motion. One is more calendar based, where it helps you organize your day. Like, okay, I need to allocate 5 hours to this client, get it on my calendar, and find me the spaces where it makes the most sense. And then there's one for data. You can manage anything, really, any type of content in there. And I haven't dug into those yet, but I have accounts on them.
There's another AI tool, not Motion though. There's another one that I have thought about using to help me with my calendar, but I don't know. Maybe I'm too old school for that to let it. Not that I'm afraid of it. What's AI going to do? Just give me a sample calendar, right?
Yeah.
But I don't know. I haven't pulled the plug.
No, it's going to soak up your whole life, and then
I don't know. I feel like I need to have some sort of control. Maybe that's a little millennial. Yeah. I need some control.
Yeah.
Because I use AI enough, right? Like I do. Yeah. I use ChatGPTs, I use Gemini, I use the AIs that are in Notion. I've also built platforms where clients have built their own AI as well. So I'm a huge proponent of AI.
Yeah. So I would love to dive into more tools, but let's talk on that. Let's talk about you building some of these things and tell us about that, because now that is
100% what I'm doing. Yes.
That is 100%.
As of May 21st of this year, I have been 100% free from my corporate life. A blessing in disguise, I will say. And it has been a beautiful kind of heads down journey of what I already had a book of business, right? Of clients that I had built proprietary software for outside of my HR world, right? These are things that I had been working on, completely outside of my corporate life. And then now I've just been able to focus on, software and application building and really just kind of being able to make sure that my clients are in a great space to launch their platforms. I had a lot of clients that were launching as well, and then being able to be in a space where I'm able to receive new clients. It's been a really exciting time, and being able to just kind of play in different technology stacks and just being able to be outside of my HR world. That has been very, very interesting and very cool as well.
Yeah, that sounds exciting because you get to be more creative in how you approach things. So for sure. So tell us the types. Tell us give us some sample projects of what types of things you're building out for them. And
absolutely. So I've worked a lot with the nonprofit space, specifically a really awesome organization called Cielo. They are an indigenous nonprofit community that connects indigenous speaking individuals very in the Western hemisphere of the country with interpreters by way of, medical, academic and legal needs. So if I need to go and speak to somebody that speaks a different language other than Spanish, I'm able to connect with an interpreter that speaks a specific dialect that can help me with, each one of those three needs. So my team and I built an entire kind of communication platform, if you will, so that they're able to, the agencies and actual, people that need the interpretation services are able to book kind of bi-directionally, right? Find, the agencies that are making sure that they're able to book with our services, and then our users are able to book as well, and also be able to have the security clearance from a governmental agency, and also HIPAA compliance information as well. So it's been really interesting integrating a lot of different tools to be able Zoom integrations, things like that, for us to be able to power the entire application. So I've been in that space for quite a bit. I've also worked with other mom coaching platforms, beauty tools, accounting firms, things like that. So it's been very interesting.
And it's mainly like product management and data and client management, like those are you?
No, actually developing the software, right?
Yeah.
Like I have a team of developers,
Yep.
Quality assurance testers, scrum masters, project managers as well,
Yep.
that help bring an entire application to life.
Wow, that's awesome. Like, yeah, the language sounds complicated, right? What if it's and it's some indigenous the native language that, but I guess that's the position is you're gathering. What are the different languages they could possibly speak that are?
It's really interesting. I really try to, because for a while, I was very, my corporate life was, number one priority for a very long time. Right.
Yeah.
And I had to really make sure that the clients that I worked on were also projects that I felt very passionate about, and that also aligned with my own Latina Techie platform and raising awareness for Latinos in technology, and just kind of making sure that technology in and of itself is accessible to our communities. It's very interesting how I've been able to work with organizations such as themselves that are making such an impact in the community, that we've been able to, like I said, make technology accessible to them as well.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And it's amazing. What about when it comes to integrations? Like, is that difficult to do? Like, especially when you're building an app from scratch, and then, I mean, it's all tech, so I'm sure there's.
So, I'll be honest. So think of like building technology, like building a house, right? You speak to an engineer or a contractor, right? Typically, you're going to speak to a contractor. They're going to work with their engineers to draw up your blueprints. And then you're going to, find the people that you need to start building this house. Technology is exactly the same thing. Same thing with integrations, right? So like when you need a plumber, okay, so now it's like, now I need a plumber, so that's a different contract. Now I need, the pool people, I'm building a pool, that's a different contract. Same thing with integrations. And it isn't that it's hard to actually connect the systems. It's where we find the challenges, and what takes us 6 to 12, sometimes 18 weeks is the communication between us and, like, for example, QuickBooks. I've done a lot of QuickBook integrations. That is a minimum 12-week cycle. And that's just because that's QuickBooks. That's just QuickBooks. That is just what they say. Yep. We submit a ticket, they get back to us. It's very Salesforce, right?
Yeah.
So it isn't that it's hard to connect, but communicating between different huge organizations, that is where a lot of the challenge lies, right? Yeah. It's like government and corporate, right?
Yeah.
Very dinosaur.
Totally. And it makes sense, especially for a company like QuickBooks. Yeah, they take time, and they're very it's nuanced, very detailed, and everything has to be in place. Every nail has to be in the right spot, and as it should be. But yeah, the process takes
PayPal,
time.
that's another one. Like I've done a lot of what do we call it? Payment gateway integrations, like Stripe, PayPal, minimum 12 weeks, minimum. And they just ask for 2 codes. Like at the end of it, you go through this huge implementation process for them to be like, okay, now we need this, 16, I think it's like a 16-digit code.
Yeah.
And then you have it, and then you get another 9, and then you just have to submit those 2 codes, and that's it. You're connected. Yeah. That's it. Yeah. All of that for those 2 codes.
Yeah. And that's on an app, on a physical app, or is it also web?
Both. It can be both. So my
but
team, so we can develop, what we do cross-platform. So we won't necessarily, we don't recommend to launch all three at the same time, right? Like I'm never in the business of giving a client, I'm giving you the mobile app, the web version and the Android, right? Like we'll do it in phases, but as we develop, we're developing across, like the code may not be the same in all three, but
correct,
we're doing the work for all three at the same time.
yeah. That sounds a lot, and it sounds cool at the same time because I love all that stuff.
It's a lot cooler than it's complicated. Just think of always building a house. Like that's all I always bring my clients back to, because it's not as scary as we think. Now, are the developers writing in a code that we don't know? Yeah, it's just because we didn't go to school to learn that specific language. That's all it is.
Yeah. So what systems, if you can give a business owner or, like some tools or that they need to be implementing right now to improve processes within their organization, what does that look like? What are some of we got the Calendly that we spoke about. Airtable is great for so many myriad of things, especially forms. I know if you want to do surveys to your community, forms, email automations, all of that stuff is so important. What do you think is for any business owner, when you think of somebody that says, okay, I'm starting from scratch, what do I need to operate efficiently? Let's say they already have data coming in, they already have leads coming in and business pipeline coming in. What is the infrastructure of what you would say, well, do you have this in place, this in place, this in place, so that all right, now we can build on this kind of thing?
I always ask, and it doesn't matter how basic it is. It could be something as, a table in your notes column, in your notes, right? Because there's people who are selling, hair bows, right? It doesn't have to get super complicated. I'll always ask, how are you tracking your business, right? Are we inventory based? Are we service based? If we're service based, how are we, let's say you're a business coach, right? Like, how are you tracking the intakes of your leads coming in, and then how many of those you actually get on the phone, and then and then I also kind of tie in the financials as well. How are you also how are we tracking client interactions, and then at the end, that payment, right? Like, what is the journey from start to end? And then I start a heavy discovery process that is in my technology audit as well. One of the services that my team offers, where we kind of just go through your current business offerings, right? And we kind of walk you through, okay, Sandra, just the same kind of process, like this, you're in business X amount of years, this is how much money you make. And we kind of just walk through their entire process from start to finish, even kind of new client onboarding. And I ask the question, like, kind of show me the pain, right? Like, show me the pain, show me where you're getting stuck, show me where we think we could maximize, and then we'll come in and make our recommendations from there. But I will always ask, like, how are we tracking this work? Is it Airtable? Is it Asana? Is it Trello? Is it something as basic as I have an Excel sheet and that's how I track all my Etsy orders? Like, okay, cool. Like, how are we tracking the business comings and goings? And we start from there.
Yeah. That would be interesting to see, like the report of data of how many don't track or how many are using notes. I'm sure that data exists somewhere.
It's really, so what's funny is I'm a data nerd, right? So I do have that from my clients, right? Because for a long time as an entrepreneur, and I know you can relate to this because we've talked about this, like, you know what you're doing, but you don't know what you're doing, but you have services, but they're really not clearly defined as they are today, right? This was like years past. And so in that process, I've met with a lot of business owners that are all through the spectrum. But I will say the ones that are closest to building proprietary technology or finding or having the resources and the budget allocation for an off-the-shelf solution like a Salesforce or, something like that, they're already kind of light years ahead they're already using a ton of different systems like an Airtable, like a Flow Desk to manage their communications. They already have a website. There are, let's say I'm an online boutique, right? Like, they already have their payment integrations. Like, they're already kind of, I would say maybe 25% of the way into entrepreneurial land when they get to me of like, okay, now they're really getting serious about their technology stack. So in my data journey, that's where I've gotten to so far.
Awesome. So any mistakes that you've seen, like, okay, this person is this, they may want all of these bells and whistles, but they are This is
Not
what's
ready.
broken.
Yeah. Yeah, like I have had, so in that journey, right, I have met with incredible like entrepreneurs that have this great business idea and want to build an application and want to take it to proposal and have yet to even build a business plan behind that.
Oh.
So then when we sit down to say, okay, what are the modules going to be? What are the, and we don't have to get us that serious when we're building a proposal, right? Like it doesn't have to get that granular, but sometimes if it is I don't know, a net, like if it's $1,000 difference, or I do it by how many hours of development time it's going to be.
Yeah.
We'll have to go back to what we call a discovery phase to say, okay, this is what, did you really mean this? Did you really mean that? So that we can price it, estimate accordingly.
Yeah.
But I have met with a few founders that are 100% not ready. Like we gotta go back to we need a business plan, right? Like what problem are we solving? Why do we want a business? Because what fact of the matter is when you're building technology, you're also building a mini tech company, right? It's up to you how we're going to scale it. Yeah. Right. So I would say that sometimes is a huge mistake or some of my red flags is when I haven't seen the legwork prior.
Yeah.
We need a business plan and we need some sort of a roadmap before we get to, I want to sink in, 10, 15, 20,000, $50,000 in tech.
Yeah. Yeah. No, so you definitely need a business plan. You need to know what it is that you're doing. That is so foundational. And I agree. So many people don't have that in place. I've even had someone maybe about 10 years ago when I was, out networking and stuff. And he's like, "What? Nobody needs a business plan these days." And I'm like, because I wrote business plans. And I'm like, what do you mean? You don't need a business plan.
Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, okay, it's like if you don't need a plan, like, okay, so ¿qué es lo que vamos a hacer?
What is directing your day, right? Yeah.
What are we doing? What's the goal? Like, I need a goal, and then we can work backwards.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
But
I love it. Yeah. I think we need to maybe you can do a workshop for us at some point. Would be great to teach us more about these apps. Would be awesome. Natalie, I know we're like up to time, but like I can go another 10 minutes talking about tech because I love these systems. These systems are great. And I'm very passionate about people having, number one, a database, right? I love that. You mentioned that first is really having a platform that's going to manage your database. That's a very basic or a Google Sheets that's just going to track the efforts that you're doing. Airtable has a free version. I use it with some of my clients that aren't that big, just basic Airtable. They're not ready for all the fancy stuff. And when we do integrations, we get into that, which Zapier, I don't know if you want to touch on Zapier, which I love Zapier. Sometimes I have
I like Zapier, but I feel, you know what it is, and this is on me. I feel like I need to really dig in to all those bells and whistles.
Yeah.
That's what happens to me. I have Flowdesk and the same thing. Like I have to dive into all the bells and whistles because I know I can do so much more. That is another back to mistake. And I don't want to call it a mistake, but I think that's another thing that I find in my technology audits as well is how much we're not maximizing. Like we'll have HoneyBook subscriptions, Calendly subscriptions. Yeah. We use Google's, the whole suite, right?
Yeah.
Then and then sometimes some people we even have access to Microsoft because they pay for it for the family. So then you have Microsoft Teams. It's like there's so many tools out there.
Yep.
And we're only using, it's like our brains, we're only using 5% of them.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you somebody's mentioned a tool to me and then I'm like, oh yeah, that sounds awesome. And I'll log in and they're like, you already have an account. And I'm like, oh, I've set up an account because there's so many tools. So it's always like, I want to see what's in there. I'm like, oh crap, I do. I don't know my password.
That has happened to me. That and online shopping. I'll be honest with that too. I'll get to a website. I'm like, ooh, I've been here before.
Well, that's a fun thing. That's a fun discovery. You're like, I trusted them once. I'll go ahead and get this other. But yeah, that happens is because there are so many tools, people are like, well, which one do I use? I just want something basic. I just want something to manage, thing. And I always tell, like, I love Monday.com. I love when it comes. Yeah, I use Monday.com to manage teams and different projects within that. But when it comes to forms, there's Typeform, there's Jotform, there's Airtable. We use Airtable because we love Airtable because it does so many things. But when people like, okay, well, what do I use? And it really is about just kind of finding something that's user friendly or getting something built specifically for your needs, because then you're not going to be wasting time with trying to, have 10 different platforms trying to figure out how to do everything and then get everybody trained for those things.
I think simplification is always key. And
Yeah.
that when we start to see like, okay, it takes myself and my team of more than 5-10 people, more than 5 systems, like, okay, now is a great time to chat and see if there is opportunity to build proprietary technology. And I'll say like there is a great appetite for it depending upon the niche that you're in, right? Like I've worked with a law office what their processes of how they manage their back office is super, super precise down to from their paralegal to, how they have to submit their cases and how they work with, like the law itself and going to the court schedules. That's what I meant to say, like court schedules and stuff. So it made sense for them to get out of off the shelf technology and into something that they can manage, that they're able to scale as their team scales as well.
Yeah.
So it definitely makes sense when you start to see yourself using so many different things, then it makes sense for us to have a conversation and see how we can streamline for sure.
I love it. I love it. Natalie, this has been such a great conversation. I hope everybody learned something about Techie, got some new tools idea, and are planning what's that next evolution of your business and what's next, right? We always have to keep thinking what's next, and how could I stay ahead, right? Because the moment we start falling behind on technology and the tech and the tools that could help support a business, it's not really a good thing. We want to be on top of things so that we are efficient, because that's what these tools make us, right? They make us efficient. I can't even imagine back in the day. I always think like, remember when we didn't have GPS? Like, how did we get there? How did we drive? How did we go places? Oh, I remember stopping at gas stations when I was doing trips with the map and like just trying to figure it out. And I'm like, I don't know. Like,
I feel like our kids are not. It's going to be a different world that they'll have to learn how to survive in because of the conveniences of life, because of the GPSs, because of the phones and everything being so quick and at your fingertips. It's like, it's such a beautiful thing, but at the same time, it's like, I always wonder, like, as humans, what are we sacrificing, right? But that is a whole nother Cafecito conversation.
Yeah. That's actually a great topic we need to address. I'm like, man, we were the last generation that played with dirt, I think. And then I think my son maybe a little bit, but
that's when we went home. Yeah, exactly.
Natalie, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for joining me for Cafecito today.
Thank you so much, Sandra.
Yay. Thank you guys for joining us. Catch us next week, every single Wednesday at 1 p.m. And if you are not in our Mighty Hub community yet, join us at unitedlatinas.mn.co. Get in there, meet some Latinas across the country and globally, and let's connect. Let's make a difference because we are growing. Our GDP is growing, and we are making noise. So
that's right. One of the highest.
Yes. All right, guys. Take care, be well, and have a blessed week. See you soon.